Hey, it's Sam here, and in this video I'm going to review your resume and provide you with some actionable tips and feedback that you can implement right away and hopefully land more interviews. If anyone's watching this externally, I have redacted the personal contact information of the person, but the actual resume itself is real. So, jumping straight in terms of the format and structure, you've got a kind of chronological order, the right information where it should be, which is great. I do think that this overall resume could do with a bit of a structure and format upgrade. It could do with a bit more of a polish and structure to it. Just some of the columns and the lines and the spacing, overall, even though it's stylistic, it kind of just makes a difference to have a bit more of a polished structure. The biggest thing here is I would maybe clean up some of the contact information here, maybe use two columns just to separate it so there's a bit utilization of this white space here. But other than that, you've got the right contact information of, the state, the city, the state, email and LinkedIn profile. So that's all solid. I think this whole section in the summary can actually go, I would actually replace it with a career accomplishment section. Some of this is really personal, and really, when it comes to landing interviews and being assessed for a job, it should be more sort of based on objective criteria or objective experience rather than some of the personal elements of your life. So I would actually remove it. Also, I think it shows that just kind of a bit of understanding, putting too much personal information about your life maybe shows an awareness difference of how the norm is usually done. So what I would do is instead I would replace it with 3 to 5 bullets of your biggest career wins. And there's a few reasons for putting the career accomplishment section. Number one is you want to lead with kind of the highlights of your career, but you can also tweak the 3 to 5 bullets to make them relevant to the role that you're actually applying for. So I would change this and put 3 to 5 bullets of your top career wins and obviously align those with the jobs that you're actually applying to. You don't need to change your whole resume, just make a few tweaks to the 3 bullets. Okay, so moving on to the experience section, using bullets, etc. is great. The title, the company, all of that is absolutely fine. I do think there could be a tighter formatting or a nicer formatting could be used here just because it looks a little bit offside. But also the biggest thing is that I would actually add a company summary. I would want to put a company summary, and the reason being is you want to help the reader understand the size and scope of the organization that you previously worked for. I obviously can tell it's in the medical related field, but I have no idea about the size of the organization, the type of growth, and also what they specialize in. And it's really important to have some of that information there and format it well. An example of what I've maybe created for you, or just as an example, is this is pretty much what the structure and format that I use for most clients in an example of how I would lay out some information. I'll show you my resume as an example. So in this section here, what I've done is I've put, the company, the title, but then just by going online, on their website and their LinkedIn page, I was able to kind of glean a little bit of information. But now I've said Arch Medical has over 30 employees and provides troubleshooting, rapid repair and maintenance to all medical equipment. This immediately tells the size and scope of the organization, size being employees, the scope of kind of what they do. It also shows off that you have expertise now in this field, and you might be able to parlay or obviously leverage that to another organization. Going back to this resume here, I do think that the bullets could do with a bit of an upgrade. Some of this is very vague, and kind of missing some detail, and I would also want to see some standard operations metrics here in the bullets, such as cost savings, revenue growth, the size of budget that you managed. If you can't give specific details, you can talk in terms of 5, 6 or 7 figures in terms of managing a budget. But also you mentioned you were the first employee here. So how many employees did you grow to that you were part of? Did you interview anyone? Were you part of managing that growth, managing the organization as it upgraded? Also, any implementation of systems and tools and software from an operations perspective. And if you were director of operations, did you lead a team? What size was that? What was the scope of the operations? Leading operations for a 30-person company that sells to local businesses is very different to leading operations to a state that sells across the country or even internationally. There's so many different things involved. So I think there's a real opportunity to sell some of the core operations metrics that I'm sure that you would have somewhere in your mind, and that you had also been a part of. Also, what I've noticed here with the language is it's not it's not a common practice to use the first person, so you wouldn't say I have worn many hats or I am responsible for implementing the goals. You would just kind of use the third person. So an example would be of how I would work with someone if we were to write a resume together. Would be changing that language and also adding in some core metrics. So again, an example of what I would do is I would say something like, you helped grow the company from 3 employees to over 30 and achieve 7 figures in revenue in under 18 months as the first employee hired for this startup. That tells me a lot more than anything in this current resume. It tells me obviously that you're a first employee, but also the growth that you've been a part of, the growth that you've experienced. But also, I obviously made up these metrics because I don't actually know what the things are. But it's really important for you to tell that story. Something like this, in my opinion, would make it very appealing for most other businesses that are early stage, looking to achieve a fair amount of growth in revenue. That I would even say it transcends the actual industry, so that if you wanted to move over to tech or agriculture or something else, that itself is a skill set and an experience. So you can use that experience to apply for other roles and other companies that are of a similar size and maybe have similar stages of growth. So that's why it's really important to have those kind of time, money, team and scope examples. I always say talk about time, money, team and scope. And, team size being here like 3 employees, the time in under 18 months, the scope of the role of being first employee. And obviously money, 7 figures. But that's what I would recommend here in this section here, as well as for all of the other roles. Because you have your own side business as project manager and owner, I would say it's kind of optional to put that in. If you do put it, it'd be optional in the sense that you want to show that you're interested in a full-time opportunity. And sometimes, a side business can be really helpful, especially if it gives you an edge in terms of knowledge, expertise. So an example of what I mean is if you wanted to, apply for an agriculture company, having this project manager as a family ranch would be, agriculture or farming, anything kind of adjacent there. Having that would be very beneficial. Whereas, some people might view it as, is this person's focus going to be divided because they're trying to actually grow the family ranch and business into a business where they don't actually need a role. So sometimes it can be great, and other times, I've seen other people, hiring managers, have concerns. I think it's great that everyone has a side business and is entrepreneurial or a side passion that evolves into a business. But anyways, if you do keep it, again, remove kind of the first person, but also focus on some of the core metrics. Think about yourself as a ranch owner. If you were going to sell the ranch, what would you talk about? You would talk about, well, the ranch is profitable. The ranch has, this amount of livestock, and it is, over 20 acres of land and has, 7,000 square feet, facility or whatever that may be. Kind of objectify it in that sense, really productize it. So that you've got that consistency of metrics throughout your resume. So similar feedback with Try Imaging Solutions is I would really want to understand, the size and scope and what they specialize in. So adding a company summary about that role, and then, similar kind of going through some of the core metrics that would be expected from a program director. So some of the things that just kind of immediately came to mind, and, if we were to work together on a resume, like what I would want to interview you about or ask you about is managing a cross-functional team of instructors, like how many? And here you wrote the curricula. In what time frame and what was the result? Did that improve training, and also being able to rewrite curricula in a matter of weeks and have a result is very different to taking 3 years to do it. So that's why I say bring in some of the time elements to that, because it brings consistency through your profile, but also it removes any doubt or increases the objectivity of your experience. Where when you're interviewing, you can actually say, look, I developed this in this time frame and this was the result. So having this approach in your resume actually helps when you interview as well. Similar to this experience, it wouldn't hurt to add a wee bit more detail about this, and obviously like bullets, you've used dashes here and not here, and then it's just a little bit inconsistent. Whereas you using a format like this, it's you would say it's just a little bit, it's not perfect, I'm sure document designers would be able to find many faults, but it follows certain rules of design. It's like, certain paintings can be really subjective depending on the art style, but then there are also certain rules, like rule of thirds, in photographs and paintings that make it more visually appealing. So that's what I'd recommend, is kind of a bit of a better format and structure, modernized, shall we say. Down here, when it comes to maybe experience that is over 10 years old, you don't need to do the same, you don't need to go into that level of detail here in terms of company summaries. You can probably from around here just start even, to some degree, a one line is absolutely fine. Even deleting some of these bullets, just because again the experience is so far back, but also it might not be relevant to the roles that you're applying for. So really, you want to just showcase and highlight. If you do take some of that information out of, say, 10, 15 years and above, definitely keep the dates the dates and stuff in your resume like this, but just put the actual titles and the duration. Here as well, like the kind of formatting's off, so I would want to move that over. Thank you for your service. But in any of these roles, again, just kind of the bare minimum is needed, given the length, or rather, given the time of when they were. Licenses and certificates, great. I just think, there's different text sizes and stuff like that, so I'd try and make it a consistent, again, just so that it's easier on the eyes, but easier to read as well. So this is what that's the feedback that I have for your resume, is that overall the structure and formatting could do with a modernization, and the content in your bullets could do with an upgrade. To show you an example as well of what I mean by the career accomplishment section, because I mentioned remove this and put forward your career accomplishment section. So use my resume as an example. Again, exactly the format that I just showed you with the example of yours. I use the career accomplishment section here to highlight my biggest career wins, but also an example is if I wanted to apply for a clinical recruitment position, then of course what I'm going to do is showcase my clinical recruitment experience front and center. That's what I want. This is kind of prime real estate in the resume, so I want to show that immediately when someone's looking at my resume that I have the experience. What the career accomplishment section also allows you to do is bring up older experiences front and center, because really it's a highlights reel. It's like a summary of your top accomplishments, and it doesn't need to be of your most recent experience. So an example of how I might tweak this for a job application is years ago I worked for a blockchain organization. Don't ask me what blockchain is. I still don't know what it is. Still don't know really what it is. But years ago I worked for a blockchain organization, and let's say I wanted to apply for another blockchain organization. Then me putting my clinical recruitment experience isn't relevant. So what I can actually do is add a bullet and say, I led the recruitment efforts of a Vancouver-based blockchain organization and helped recruit over 30 engineers and leaders. That is from an experience that was 6 years ago, but career accomplishments lets me pull that to the front and set, like the top of my resume, and that's how I would tweak this section if I was applying for a role, and that's why I recommend having that in your profile as well, just so you can showcase your biggest wins. So anyways, I hope this was helpful to you, and you've got some actionable feedback that you can implement. Do let me know if you want to actually get a copy of this document and that you can kind of rework. But I think those are the key things: is it needs a modernization and a real upgrade to some of the content in the bullets, because I know you've got some great accomplishments. It just doesn't seem to be being showcased in your resume. Anyways, good luck and thank you.